Hello, and welcome to our Microsoft Ignite 2025 coverage and this analyst angle. I'm Rob Strechay, and today I'm joined by Paul Nashawaty, who leads up our app dev practice, and we're going to be recapping everything Microsoft Ignite 2025, the keynotes, and a deeper look into some of the insights around the announcements around Fabric, Azure, Microsoft 365, and security, not to mention what they're doing in the app dev space. So welcome on board, Paul. Good to have you on.
Always great to be here. What a great show. There was a lot of excitement, a lot of announcements to go through. So yeah, absolutely great show to be covering today.
Yeah, so let's start it there. What were some of the overreaching themes that you saw at Ignite 2025 this year?
Yeah, for sure, Rob. I mean, I think that the show was promising a lot, right? There was everything from Work IQ to Fabric IQ, Foundry IQ. You saw that Microsoft Agent Factory and then Microsoft Agent 365. You touched on some of those things, but those were the main key areas. When we look at Ignite overall, from my practice perspective, one thing was very clear. When we look at the entering the agentic AI era, right? We see that agents are evolving from assistants or co-pilots to really first-class participants in the enterprise workflows. We're also seeing that complete AI life cycles are really kind of getting framed up, and we saw this at Ignite. At the keynote, we saw it in some of the sessions, the breakout sessions, and also some of our collateral that we're covering. We saw the idea to build, to deploy, to govern, to secure, to scale. It's really spanning cloud, data, security, applications, and productivity. So it's really about productivity tools, right? And productivity enhancements. That's a big part of what we're seeing around AI. We saw it last week at KubeCon. We're seeing it again here at, Ignite. From frontier firms, we see organizations that are combining human judgment with autonomous and semi-autonomous agents, really to allow for that, again, productivity, to move faster than traditional enterprises. Those organizations that are able to capitalize on this are going to have a competitive advantage. The ones that don't are going to be boxed out. And that's really where, really is a big thing. And talk about, themes as well. Strategic advantage is really one of the key things that that was really kind of called out in a lot of the sessions, the keynote, as well as a couple of the other sessions, which is companies are embracing AI agents across workflows. They're really positioning themselves to outpace those competitors, right? Which is, again, if you adopt it, you'll box out your competition. And according to our own research, we're seeing that enterprise AI adoption is really taking a foothold in production applications. And then finally, one of the key themes that I thought was really actually refreshing, because what I typically think of Microsoft is a lot of different silos, but they had cross-product integration. AI is not siloed. AI is an enabler that helps all the products, and this was embedded across the entire Microsoft portfolio and all the pillars from, highlighting that end-to-end adoption for modern enterprises. So yeah, lots happening here, Rob. Lots going on.
Yeah, I mean, it was a ton. I agree with you on a lot of that, and I think let's dig in a little bit deeper. How does this life cycle theme show up in the major product announcements that you heard?
Well, I think, Rob, several major themes really kind of like front and center at Ignite, right? It reinforced Microsoft's AI lifecycle management and messaging along, from AI pilots into production, right? I mean, we're seeing in our own CUBE research, we see that 51% of applications that are going to production are using AI today. And that information is dated from my August study. So I can only imagine how much more organizations are doing today, which is, we're talking about November, and in the world of AI, that was a lifetime ago. So, when we look at some of the things that happen at Ignite, right, we saw Microsoft Agent 365. It's a central control plane that helps enterprises with the AI agents across Microsoft 365, right? So it really helped here by handling the identity pieces, but also permissions, agents running, and evaluation of observability. That's a big part of the agent to agent piece, right? The MCP piece, which is a big factor in the communications of data. New co-pilot agents were expanding across Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Of course, we expect to see that, right? That's a big enhancement. But workforce, HR, and people and learning and admin teams, are really starting to look at this and using Teams as well for collaboration, as well as SharePoint is a big factor. But this is showing deeper integration, again, holistically across the portfolio and across the collaboration tools. Big factor in the dev space, where collaboration is a big factor in AI. it is a people, process, and technology conversation, not just a tech stack. Fabric IQ, it really introduced that, that intelligence layer that transforms Microsoft Fabric data into really a true intelligence platform. This remains to be seen in my mind. I think this is kind of like the same way Apple Intelligence went out there. I kind of feel like we'll see how this kind of pans out. I don't know how much adoption this is going to take, but we'll see. I mean, I think that there's a potential here, but it really is potential about enabling the data-driven agent workflows and such. So I think that there's some help there that could be kind of teased out, but we'll see what the adoption look like. The other kind of areas that Rob that I thought were like really powerful in my mind was, and this is really true to a lot of the enterprise application space, is the Azure Intelligent Cloud. Infrastructures that are really starting to help design, govern, run those secure agents at enterprise scale. This is incredibly important, especially when we start looking at app dev and we start looking at things like later on this year, the EU CRA that has to be instituted. We see that all applications have to be complying by the end of December 2027. So Azure Intelligent Cloud gives a foundation for that. Securing the agentic era really has the autonomous security models and agents focused around this. So a new security co-pilot has experiences within the 365 suite as well. And then also, finally, I want to land with the Power Platform plus the excuse me, the Power Platform plus the Copilot Studio. It really helps with the agent building capabilities and MCP integration, as I was talking about. That's a big factor because the data sharing is a big kind of element here. But beyond this, when we look at the industry context around this and we look at like what we see in our own research, we're seeing the adoption of data really is showing enterprises are moving AI beyond experimental into lifecycle driven productivity, and workflows are 3 times more likely to see measurable productivity gains. We also see organizations are embedding agents and governance as well as observability to enhance their risk by over 40%. So lots happening here, Rob, and there's a lot going on in the agent world. But I know there was a lot to talk about, but it's pretty exciting stuff.
Oh, it definitely is. I think again, there's just so much going on, and I think there is so many different roles that people are playing out there, and it is so exciting to see as well. So I think as we kind of look at it, let me kind of give you a little bit of perspective on what I saw from a data and analytics perspective, and some of the big announcements that were there this week so far, where like you mentioned, the Fabric IQ, as Microsoft moves to from a data platform to an intelligence platform, at least that's their talk track there, as they start to look at the semantic modeling, real-time intelligence, reasoning over data, AI-driven insights, and tighter integration between BI and AI, or BI and analytics, not to mention AI. They're looking to be kind of a connective tissue layer there. Also, they're bringing things like Fabric and partner interoperability with zero copy data. Microsoft was introducing zero copy data interoperability, enabling organizations to really have data across partner data platforms and Fabric One Lake with no data movement, which is really huge to them, in the fact that, again, they are looking to help companies with analytics, BI, and AI workloads that can run on either platform. Again, which helps their ecosystem. And we'll be talking to some of that ecosystem in later sessions after this. Governance and security was a huge play there, and metadata and staying consistent. Iceberg tables, really was working natively with OneLake was a big thing. And enterprise eliminating ETL sprawl and avoiding multiple data copies, which is huge. And it's funny, you mentioned some of the data that we've used before, and that we see in our research. One of the things from our recent data platform survey was the fact that over 92% of organizations were looking for interoperability between their on-prem and cloud data pipelines. So this kind of interoperability with Iceberg and other open data formats is going to be huge. Not to mention, unifying the data estate for AI, because nobody wants to rehydrate all their data into one place. It's because you're paying for it at least twice, if not 3 times. And I think they're positioning themselves to be the data foundation and backbone of that agent strategy. And they really, are trying to get away from fragmented data. And kind of finally, in this segment, they were really looking at Power Platform for AI, really Power Apps that now support chat built in, multi-page business apps, really looking at how you don't have to change context to use AI. And I think that was huge as well. Not to mention, you kind of mentioned this as well, but Copilot Studio introducing agent evaluations, Windows 365 based computer use, real time monitoring of agent runs, and Entra Agent ID for agent identities. And we could probably go on for about a half an hour on IAM and security around this. And I know you'll talk about security again in a minute here, but that whole tokenization that's coming out, and there's a lot of announcements from other companies and partners of theirs around that as well. And then obviously the MCP server preview for connecting agents and apps and data. I think, I feel like Oprah, you get an MCP server, you get an MCP server, everybody gets an MCP server. I think, again, how you use MCP is critical because it's just a protocol, and how you secure it is even more important as well.
Yeah, Rob, I couldn't agree more. The data is the lifeline of the business, and the way that they were talking about the data and this really you made a lot of key relevant points and good insights here. MCP servers, I definitely think right now, as we're building and learning, it's great that everyone has their own, but at some point, somebody has to come along and harmonize this and almost abstract the MCP layer from everybody so you have one unified MCP protocol. But yeah, there's a lot happening here, and the changes with the cloud infrastructure side. What was going on there?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Azure at Ignite was really, again, around, standardizing infrastructure for agentic workloads. They're looking to be kind of that platform for agentic going forward. We hear a lot of that messaging going on. Azure AI services now support, more flexible agent workflows. Again, that orchestration and making it easy. As we see in the research, again, that is a big sticking point for organizations where, I think over 80% are still struggling with how they're going to build these agentic workflows out. Improved observability and operational telemetry for agent-based cloud apps that are built on top of Azure. So again, how do you see and tell that the app is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing, and you can trust your AI? And trusted AI is a big thing that Scott talks about a lot, and we talk about here a lot. So, again, it's one of these things as we do our research that we're drilling into, and really new tooling to help enterprises scale agents securely across distributed infrastructure. I think security, as you and I know from doing many of these together, it's really about that usually pops to the top. But funny enough, in this, from a data management and orchestration perspective, some of the things that was good to hear them talk about, and what I was talking about previously, and really ties into what they're doing at the infrastructure in creating kind of what they call an operational backbone for AI systems, is that quality, privacy, and skills gaps are really the top three problems and challenges that organizations are seeing to get to these workflows. It's just crazy that you can go through all of this and still see that cost really hasn't been the top that we've been seeing. It's really things like skills gaps,
Skill gaps, complexity, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think one of the things, again, that I was seeing a lot with, and I know you were, security seemed like a huge topic this year, which is good. And I think Microsoft and Azure have taken some hits over the years about this, but I believe in people like Charlie Bell, who's over there now running all of this. And what have you seen in their angle as they move into this agentic era?
Yeah, this is near and dear to my heart, right? Because like when I think about my practice, I talk about past, present, and future, because like building the application workflow and how organizations are, wherever they are in their maturity, they are typically dealing with applications that live at any stage, right? And bridging the gap between heritage environments and new environments is an important factor. So security plays a big factor here, right? So if you're encapsulating your heritage environment, some people think that that's secure enough. In reality, it's not, because when you start talking about these agents and you're looking at this agentic era, right? It was very clear in my mind that from a Microsoft perspective, as it should be, security was front and center, right? And Microsoft has taken a stance here that the security and the focus around security around these agents and pulling of information is critical to say the least, right? I mean, when you look at the information, it has to be pulled. But I want to talk through a couple of announcements, right? A couple of the things that was really kind of front and center at Ignite. Security as a primitive, right? You saw ambient and autonomous security as it built into every layer, right? So you start at the silicon angle. Silicon angle. That's one of the things we start. But you start at silicon, right, with the hardware, and move to the operating system, move to identity management. Now, going to be human identity, machine identity, non-human identity, cloud, data, apps, and agents, right? All of this is a big part of the security angle, right? So in our research, we're seeing that enterprises are embedding security at every layer, right? We're seeing that 30 to 50% fewer incidents when deploying autonomous agent workflows across every layer. So that is, and like there was a great alignment between our research and what Microsoft was talking about there. We also saw security co-pilots and workflows, right? This included the 365E5, enabling agent-driven management of identity access. Again, identity being non-human or human, threat investigation, compliance, data protection, endpoint posturing. In our research, we're seeing organizations are using integrated security agents, meaning to reduce the mean time of threats by 40 to 60%. So there's a lot of advantage to put this in place at the point of each one of those stages. Agent 365 plus Defender and the integration pieces here. This is how security teams can now gain that unified agent registry. They can have real-time agent telemetry. That's a big factor here. Of course, actionable insights on what's happening real time is important, especially when it comes to security. The safety controls and sandbox is also very important. This is important in my mind because when I think of the amount of applications that are being developed, the no-code, low-code development of applications with the ability of using AI to develop applications allows lines of business or citizen developers, not the professional developer, to develop those applications. If you don't have guardrails in place, then that can have a whole number of issues with your own environment. But the audit trails for agent behaviors, again, equally important. If you're extracting data out of that heritage environment and you're not finding where that heritage environment is protecting the data, you really need to understand that audit trail is a big factor. I think an Agent 365 is gonna pull out. So what do we see in our research? We see that enterprise adopting these real-time agent monitoring report 35% fewer operational risks related to AI-driven processes. Important note there, right? Everyone's using AI. You need to be able to automate the management of that and have the lens on it, what's happening in that space. Last thing I want to talk about here around security is how admin agents are preventing drift and oversharing. Teams admin agent and SharePoint admin agent, they really started to show how they automatically secure collaboration environments. Collaboration is key, but you also want to protect what you're sharing, right? The teams need to know how they're working together, but you want to prevent misconfigurations and data leakage because obviously some teams are more privileged to data than other teams. You want to make sure you're putting those guardrails in place. So bottom line here, security is no longer optional. Not that it ever really was, but it's no longer optional. It is built in, into the agentic fabric, and firms that enable it across AI workflows are really better positioned to scale safely, confidently, and really, looking at this is backed by our own research as well. So we're absolutely interested in sharing that research with you as well. So feel free to reach out to us and talk to you. So Rob, when I think about all of this, right, there was a lot happening. There was a lot of updates around, Microsoft 365 and the productivity apps. What are your thoughts on that? Because that was a big space too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge space. And I think again, it's really interesting because I think that when we start to look at this, AI everywhere, they really kicked it off with Copilot agents embedded everywhere. I mean, really Word, now, the Word agent, now GA, Excel and PowerPoint agents now in chat, Outlook voice triage, mobile Copilot voice mode, workforce insights agent for HR, which again, is critical to getting that leverage. People agent, learning agent, Teams agent, and then Teams as in Microsoft Teams, SharePoint admin agent. Again, I know the toil that people go through, and we talked about this even last week at KubeCon, that how do you run some of these systems and having these agents that can actually help you do that better. So, these agents weren't just about asking questions and being chatbots. They actually can act on your behalf as well. So really agents that were multimodal, easier to say than not, and really got people thinking about it. They're also a new pattern where customers could really use chat to drive multi-step AI-powered workflows, and they're calling this agent mode. And I think that was a big one as well, and really helping to get places. I remember the days when I had to go build macros and then have a script outside of it call the macro and things of that nature. This, would have made my life a hell of a lot easier back in the late 90s, early 2000s, put them, simply. Copilot chat for every worker. So, in preview by March, allowing, users without a full Copilot license to get basic assistance. So I think this is good. I think that gets people using it and invites them in as they see the productivity benefits they get so that they can then maybe go to a full license. And then obviously, they talked a lot about Microsoft 365 Copilot Business, really new SMB focused bundles for companies under 300 seats, priced around $21 per user per month, which is kind of in line with kind of the commercial types of bundles that you see out there. So they're really stepping up on the commercial side as well and helping out in the small business realm. And I think also back to kind of what you were talking about, they tied in really well with a lot of governance challenges. We've seen that, the data is really central to it. And we have a lot of research around this, that role-based access, auditability, and residency were the top three that came back. And everybody is really super concerned about what's going on in those three spaces and how that flows through things like, 365 into AI. And because a lot of that is, core IP for companies, and they're very concerned about that. And Microsoft's definitely taking steps to secure that and build deep integration into that. So, I mean, we just covered the gamut. I mean, like just legit all over the place here. Final thoughts, Paul. Bring it home with this.
Yeah, well, Rob, like you said, there's a lot here to unpack, a lot to think about. This is just starting the conversation, so we're more than happy to continue that discussion with you if you want to reach out to us. But I'll tell you, from my perspective, the message from Ignite was very clear. It was very clear because moving into this agentic AI era is not optional. And the reason why I say that is because, like I said earlier, if you're not doing these things, you're going to get boxed out. Competition wise, you're going to get boxed out. We see in our own the Cube research that we have, right? We see that organizations and enterprises that are adopting structured agent strategies early are 2 to 3 times more likely to see measurable productivity gains and also reduce operational risk by 40% or more. So what I want to leave the audience with here, Rob, is our 6 recommendations. So just kind of 6 kind of thoughts to kind of think about here, right? So based on Ignite and based on what we're seeing, I challenge the audience to assess your agent readiness, identify your workflows, and how ready are you for the agent autonomy, kind of making things happen autonomously. Second thing I would ask is, or challenge you on, is unify your data, right? Data is the lifeline of your business, and moving from heritage environments to new environments is always a challenge, but data cleansing and readiness is kind of the foundational piece for agents. So leverage Fabric IQ, interoperability, one lake as an intelligent ready foundation. That will really help with that kind of process. The other thing is as you're modernizing, now we all know modernization is a treadmill, you're always on it, but as you're modernizing, prepare your cloud, right? Prepare the environment. So ensure that whether you're using Azure or other hyperscalers, but ensure your hybrid environments and hyperscalers and Azure to optimize to run and govern agents at scale. That's a big factor. Once you start building things, and if you can't scale, it's going to be broken in the future. Other thing I touched on already, I want to leave it with you as well, is to upgrade your security posture. Shift to an ambient autonomous security model that really helps protect agent-driven workflows. Managing the data between heritage environments and bridging the gap to new is incredibly important. And making sure those guardrails are in place, especially as you start letting your citizen developers create applications. And then speaking of that, the fifth recommendation I want to leave with you is I challenge you to empower your makers, empower your citizen developers, use the Power Platform and Copilot Studio as a test bed to see how you can accelerate agent development and deployment. Natural language and Copilots allow for that ease of use. Your citizen developers will take the workload off your dev teams. And with everything shifting left, you want to shift something back to their lines of businesses, and that's a way to do it. And then finally, I'll leave you with this, just kind of one thing that sounds simple, but it's easy. It's a real thing to kind of get going. And it's, whether you're just getting started or if you even mature in your deployment, create a 90-day pilot. Start with one of the high impact use cases and then iterate quickly. That's how you're going to fast fail. That's how you're going to figure things out, but make sure you're protecting your data. So bottom line, I would say firms that follow what we're talking about here and what we're suggesting, and they treat AI agents as first-class workflows participants and not just experimenting, but they're really starting to build that foundation for the frontier of firms that perform in the agentic era. That's really what we're talking about. And again, if you're not doing it, you're at risk of being boxed out. So Rob, that's where I would leave it.
Totally, Paul. I think, again, what we're seeing with Ignite is the energy, and I guess, a lot of it has to do with the partners as well, and we'll kind of get into that as well. But thanks again, Paul, for coming on board.
Of course, thanks for having me here.
And before we close, just a quick heads up. We have a series of videos that go deeper into many of the significant ecosystem moves tied to Ignite. We have 4 rapid Dell plus Microsoft breakdowns, Dell Private Cloud with Azure Local, PowerStore turbocharging Azure Local, and PowerScale now running natively as an Azure service, and how Dell is strengthening cyber resilience and enabling on-device AI apps with their AI PC ecosystem, and an episode of Oracle database at Azure and what the partnership really means to multi-cloud and mission-critical workloads. Thank you for hanging in it here with us for this Microsoft Ignite 2025 Analyst Angle. And we're theCUBE. Stay tuned to theCUBE, the leader in analysis and news.